of interaction and greater effectiveness of interaction. Right.
Yes, certainly, sir. Before I get to Dr. Chanana, very quickly, sir, I was part of a presentation that was made, and I think that's what you just mentioned. Tourism is going to head that way. So there will be physical tourism and there will be virtual tourism, and virtual tourism.
I'm missing this good old days. I went to, you know, one of your meetings. You gave me a nice flower bouquet. So I'm missing that. Maybe you send it to me, a virtual bouquet, to all the speakers. Right?
We'll do that, sir. Thank you so much. And I'm going to now ask Dr. Chanana to help us guide this. Thank you so much, all speakers. Dr. Chanana, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sood. You know, the last thing to do is propose the vote of thanks, and thank you, Professor Sharma, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, for agreeing to be the chief guest today. This is the first quantum technology conclave that the ITes Council of ASSOCHAM is hosting, and we do looking at the response and looking at the content that we had in terms of learning. We do hope to make it a kind of a repetitive exercise wherein we can actually come back periodically to understand the developments as we take. Thank you very much for highlighting some of the ministry's initiatives, sir, particularly the point that you mentioned about the 200 crores file not going to the ministry was like music to the ears. Thank you so much for that. And we are all aware about the cyber physical systems project in terms of the work that is being done, and we look forward to this particular mission also going the same way, and we hopefully will establish you know, our position, if not the supremacy in the quantum technology. Thank you, Dr. Shesha, for setting the context, and thank you for highlighting in the beginning itself the applications of quantum computing, particularly around, particularly for India, and thank you, Dr. Rohini, Srivathsa, for starting with the promise of quantum computing. And I love your last you know, slide, which said that while the research is being carried on, let's learn from each other. You know, so learning while we are actually this field is coming. Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee, for highlighting the supremacy of quantum and also the very interesting quantum computing manifesto. You know, that was something that was something real for us. I personally feel, you know, as IT Council of ASSOCHAM, we need to take this subject forward for us to be, because all of us are aware that several quantum technologies will now evolve and come to a commercial stage in the near future. Many industry players are already conducting research on sensors, metrology, imaging technologies, quantum communication, network, quantum cryptography, quantum simulators, or at least they intend to use and take advantage of this. Given this huge interest and given the huge potential, we look forward to such contributions in future. And this was a very, very interesting, and you know, and the ASSOCHAM team needs commendable appreciation for the excellent work that they have done to actually organize it. Thank you very much to all of you for all the great words that you said. Thank you.
Professor Ashutosh, may I just take a minute, sir? Thank you so much, Dr. Chanana.
This link somewhere on YouTube or something.
Yes, sir. So this is going to go. This is recorded, but we put it on our website and also put it on YouTube and others.
Just send us a link.
We'll do that, sir. There's a lot of questions, so
I need to know what I missed talking. Okay, so thank you very much.
Sir, just take a quick minute with you, sir. The Section 8 company that you did mention about, and you spoke about 1/3 of the board being from industry. So ASSOCHAM represents a lot of such boards of multiple departments, and we are very happy if we are given an opportunity to be one of those organizations who can contribute significantly.
You see, what I explained to you, I would not be the one deciding as to what the board composition would be. Okay, no, so certainly, all the if you have, let's say, if there is a hub, let us say on a certain thing, let's call it okay, sensors or something, or robotics or whatever, right? So the companies that have interest in that particular activity, right? Basically, by talking to the people there and who comes on board and so on, so they are totally, I mean, free to determine the composition of their board.
Sure.
The
So we'll try and position our technical people.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please. No, I'm sorry, you were saying something, sir.
No, I just said the chairman, I mean, nominally, because we want these things to function in a particular, say, IIT or somewhere, right, with a building. So the director of there may become the chairman of the board, but the rest of them are, you know, with a dialogue.
Sure.
As to, you know, who brings what value to it.
Sure. So we will explore the possibility, because we have a lot of members and technical people, so they would be very, very keen, and they would be great people to get on rotation basis. So you'll be able to contribute much more than just one person sitting there. So that's what I will explore and come back to you, sir.
I agree. So if you had, for example, a representative of the association, and you know, that kind of connects that hub to the entire membership, that's also a good idea, right?
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
And you, sir. I'll catch you very soon in office. Thank you so much. Varun, let's start the next session. I would now hand over to Aditya Chaudhary. Varun, is he already there?
Yes, Mr. Chaudhary, can you switch on your camera, please?
Yeah. You can see me.
Excellent. So we still see a hazy of you, but that's clear now. So I'm going to sign out. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I wanted to pass it off on time, but I've delayed your session by 11 minutes. Good luck to you. And I'm going to be listening, and my mic and my camera will be off now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now we have a panel very quickly, and almost about 6 addresses coming in quickly, and one Denise and Andre will be doing one together. My recommendation is, if we can have a bit of patience and let them give their addresses, then we can get into a quick question and answer session. I think that would be appropriate. Presenters, I think we'll start off with Dr. Nagendra Nagaraja. My only recommendation will be, please stick to your time so that then we get an opportunity to ask you the questions and get your perspectives on where we want to go. Okay, Dr. Nagaraja.
Sure. Thanks, sir. So how do I present my screen actually? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, no, not yet. Just need to share your screen. There's a button below the webcam button. I have made you the presenter.
Okay. Now?
No, still not.
Actually, I'm unable to.
Are you joined from a laptop or a desktop or a phone?
Laptop.
Because you are the presenter.
Okay, so how do I share my screen here?
Just give me 1 second. You're logged in from 2 devices.
Okay,
Just
so
see.
yes, I can present it now. Can you see my screen?
Not
No,
yet.
not yet.
Okay. While we solve this technical issue, do you want us to go to the next speaker maybe? And we'll come back to you. Will that be okay?
Oh, can you see my screen now?
Yes, very much.
Okay, thank you.
Get into.
Thank you.
And before you start, can I request Dr. Nagendra? Before you start, can I request Dr. Hemant Darbari, Dr. Philip Markutin, and others to please switch on their camera? You can start, Mr. Nagendra.
Okay, sure, thanks. So, okay, so today we're just presenting what we do at QPI. Okay, and I also present a perspective about our vision and how do we actually make sure that the quantum and quantum is deployed in India and across the world, and what is our vision to commercialize and get the quantum rolling. Okay, so QPI is a company which has this vision, like Q stands for quantum computing. So we are building a hybrid chip, which is a classical quantum compute, which enable next generation of quantum computing. And this chip is based on CMOS quantum dots. So basically, we're using electron spin quantum dots to design the chip. And PI stands for human ingenuity. That is, we are building a full software stack to enable the industry to get onto quantum and really apply them. And we enable them with the ease and convenience. That means to say that somebody can start learning quantum, then start doing an experiment, start building a project, and going for a commercialization. We have complete software stack for that. And apart from quantum, I think we are providing a migration path for people from AI to actually move to the quantum. Basically, we are deploying commercially AI software stack now, and we have a quantum factor in that, so that people who are using AI can move to quantum naturally. So these are all industry centric. We're already commercializing this product, and we are soon launching even the quantum version of this. So basically, impact of quantum in the big technologies, like this is how we see it. We have a low hanging fruit, which is energy optimization, logistics, and we have in finance, which can be done now, which is about financial optimization. We are approached by big banks, and we are working with them. And we have machine learning and chemical and molecular drug discovery and material sciences as well. So across this, we have a technology to be deployed to start with finance and then go all the way to AI and machine learning. So the graph on the right hand side is about capability and opportunity what we have. And as you see that we are at a NIST device today, and we want to actually go to a full universal quantum compute. So hardware we are building at QPI is based on CMOS, and what we have is advantages of CMOS is long coherence time, scalability, and use of the same semiconductor technology, and it can work possibly at 4K. The research is still on, but we do see that there's a good chance that it can go to 4K. And today we have started with our chip building activity, and we will show the roadmap like when we reach there. And this is our setup looks like. We have end-to-end setup getting built in Bangalore. We are building a lab in Bangalore, and we have a classical optimizer chip, and we have a control chip and a quantum processor. We are building end-to-end hardware, software, as well as a technology solution within the company. And this can be used with our own software platform today. And the way we enable this entire quantum technology is to the platform. So we are a PaaS company, platform as a service. We have a QPI Explorer, which is for learning and doing a small experiment, which we want to use millions of users to want to use in across the world. And it's also for enterprise to ramp up on AI and quantum. We are talking about quantum technology, but most of the enterprise are still doing their AI modeling and understand what AI modeling is and where the quantum can be applied. Explorer can help there, and we have a Pro which is deployed in many manufacturing companies, and this is about AutoML, and enterprise is also on the AutoML, and we have a quantum compute, and the ultimate platform we will have is which will be based on hybrid classical quantum compute backend, which we are building right now, and all this platform are ready. So that's how we are enabling quantum computer in India and across the world. So this is our quantum software stack. We are building complete tool chain here, including the semiconductor transistors and CMOS quantum dots, and we are filing a lot of inventions here. And we are also building a quantum compiler and quantum machine learning stack, and we are also building a heterogeneous compute support, which can support QPUs, GPUs, and TPUs, all the things. So this software stack we are targeted, we are going to complete by end of this year, and of course the alpha version. And then these are the near-term applications what we are looking for. We're looking for in machine learning and artificial intelligence, which is very important because some of the the things what we saw in previous sessions, like MRI scan reconstruction, image reconstruction, IoT, and then some of the optimization problem in material sciences and chemical and drug discovery. And then the cybersecurity is big. We have a complete platform as a service to provide a cybersecurity. And our approach is like we have a platform which has everything, and big corporations across India and abroad, especially Southeast Asia, can just pick it up and deploy in their premises, and they are up and running in quantum and AI. So this is the applications we are actually looking to enable in near term. And as the heading of the talk goes, quantum for AI. Why is quantum is so suited for AI? Because quantum can model neural networks and other model well, because the way the quantum is structured with switches and connectors, we can just model map entire AI onto quantum. And what we think about is the paradigm of compute today is we have classical quantum, and quantum classical, and quantum quantum. So basically, this is how we are approaching the quantum compute world, where we have a hybrid computer today, so which is CQ at the extreme end, and we also have classical compute in terms of optimizer chip, which is a separate optimizer chip. And what we are doing is currently we are actually migrating user to the quantum compute, as well as getting them across to hybrid chips. So this is our roadmap. We are setting up a lab in Bangalore, quantum lab in Bangalore, early next year. And then today we are actually working on control chip, which can control the quantum computer. And we are targeting 2021 at least 16 qubit quantum chip, and then end of 2023 we want to commercialize full 50 qubits. It's a hybrid chip. It's not only the quantum chip, it's a hybrid chip with CMOS quantum. It is based on a CMOS technology. So this is our strategic roadmap today, and we have a good success on initial stages of obtaining customers in PaaS, platform as a service, and then we want to migrate them to quantum and quantum technology. So our again coming to AI for quantum, even AI for the way we use AI is like
I have to open my system security, and so when I look at camera, go to meeting doesn't show up.
Hello.
What? Fuck.
You need to mute it. It's okay. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah, so basically there is AI for quantum. What we talk about is the way we read out the quantum bits, right? It's impossible that anybody can read out without AI. So we see that in order to enable the error corrections and enable the quantum compute, AI is very important. And that's why we are enabling a quantum chip through a classical chip called Trion. We have two processors coming out. One is Trion, which is a classical chip, and Optimus Prime, which is a hybrid compute. And then we have a platform as a service to enable through quantum simulation and real hardware, which is getting deployed across the customers. And what it does is it does optimization, machine learning, and quantum simulation. And the way we see our approach is it supports all these things. Financial analyst, somebody who is a financial analyst or material scientist, optimization engineer, they can just use this one platform, and this is all required to do a quantum compute and AI both. So this is our initial version of PaaS, which will be deployed in a month or two. This is going across a lot of organizations, enterprises, as well as educational institutes, where we are providing a complete setup for learning AI and quantum. This is called an Explorer. Explorer is the initial version of our PaaS, which is actually getting deployed now. And this is our team, myself, Nagendra, and then Dr. Madhusudan Atre. Nakan Bhatt is the head of CNSE, and he's our advisor, Ujjwal Singh, and Dr. Amal Mukherjee, Ashwant, Laksha, and Utkarsh. So this is a quantum team, but overall we are around 20 people team, including AI. So we are trying to make this entire effort of commercializing quantum and AI in India across the world. And our approach has always been quantum for AI and AI for quantum. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagendra. I think we'll switch to Dr. Hemant Darbari right now. Dr. Nagendra, we'll come back to you for some questions.
Sure.
Dr. Darbari.
This one? Share my screen. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, Dr. Darbari. Go ahead, please.
So I'd like to thank ASSOCHAM for this webinar. Very apt for the current time. The quantum technology opportunities and challenges, the topic which has been given to me, is very, very apt right now. And we have earlier people who have already talked about a lot of things into this topic. We have two things to say: that there is a major progression from supercomputing to quantum computing, and from quantum computing to AI. My previous speaker has talked about quantum computing for AI and AI for quantum computing. So the government of India has initiated the National Supercomputing Mission, in which we have started building the supercomputers in India. We have designed and built the supercomputer, and the same process we want to take it forward
You need to
for the
webcam.
quantum.
Yes. No.
Is web camera on?
No, you. Dr. Darbari, we have lost you on the visual. We can still see your PPT, and you could hear your voice. Now all that is gone. Yeah, you're back. Dr. Darbari, we can see you. You just need to share your screen.
Presentation is
okay, we can
visible?
see you, Dr. Darbari. Yes, it is visible. Your screen is not visible, so if you could just get your screen visible while you continue. We lost you when you said the National Computing Mission, Supercomputing Mission, and then we lost you.
Okay. Is presentation available now?
Absolutely, everything is ready. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Pardon? Yeah. So as I was telling that Government of India has launched a major mission on the national supercomputing, and here we have built the supercomputer from scratch. We have built the server, the connect, as well as now we are defining the full process to build the HPC chip. So the same process we wanted to follow for the quantum computing, and the progression from supercomputing to quantum computing will be the work which CDAC will be working on. So this I am presenting the mathematics of physics and computing. The graphics use splines, the fractals mimic nature, the Schrodinger equation led to quantum mechanics and the quantum technology. The quantum technology works on the principle of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics describe the nature in the atom and particle level. Currently, research is on with the goal to putting properties of quantum mechanisms for computing. And the actual realization of this path-breaking technology remains one of the greatest challenges faced in the field of computer technology. So if you talk about the challenge part, from the computing side, the qubit quality, the error correction, qubit control, then framework for indigenous quantum computing device, benchmarking and development of solutions are the major challenges which everybody is facing in computing side. In the communication side, the major work which is required to be done is standards and certification for QKD systems. And for sensing, we have just talked about that entanglement-based sensing technology will be the major challenge. Similarly, in the simulation side, the quantum probability to classical probability mapping is one of the core problem which we have to handle. Opportunities, we are again discussing that AI will be one of the major beneficiary for the quantum computing side, because of the fact that AI, we are going as close as possible to the human being, and the lot of work which has been done, which requires a huge amount of computing, that gets reduced if we are working using quantum computers. Similarly, the drug discovery, the optimization of quantum computers will be the major work which will be required to be done, and that work which is being done in past can be accelerated dramatically using quantum computers. Quantum cryptography and quantum technology, both are coming very close, and that poses major challenge for the security part. So the sniffing detection and all these areas will become very, very important, and we have to work right now to take these things to the next level. In the financial service, again, the quantum computing could be used to find new ways to model financial data and isolate key global risk factors. So at CDAC, in the quantum computing mission, we are trying to bring India to the league of the quantum computer builders by realizing fully functional quantum computer along with the real life applications. So our goal is to develop quantum computer testbed to realize quantum resilient cryptography, to work towards post-quantum cryptography, to develop quantum key distribution, to develop quantum search algorithms, and to carry out research in quantum sensing and instrumentation. The development of quantum accelerator to work in conjunction with HPC systems, and to realize the functional indigenous quantum supercomputer. Since we are discussing about the simulator part, we already have deployed ASSOCHAM 35-qubit system, and a lot of work has been done on that. And we are also building our own Param Shavak quantum simulator. Right now it will be 10 qubit, and we will grow it further. And this will be available on cloud, and which can be programmed, and this will be all using the Python like or conventional programming languages. And the flexibility that the system can be brought in is that this can be logged in from remote, and a lot of jobs can be worked around that. Using ASSOCHAM QLM, we have already done a 47,653 is factored into 211 into 23, and this factor which has been computed onto the system. And so work is on from the SHA and this algorithm simulation onto the systems. The various methods, as we have already discussed, have been implemented for compute side and quantum computer building. So ion trap or quantum dot or optical, but we are concentrating on the superconducting based QC, and our goal is to develop an indigenous quantum computer with the collaborative effort of academia, research institutions, industries, and startups. So various applications which we are also trying to work on is on the climate and atmospheric science, and biological applications, defense and engineering applications, and this will be available at the National Quantum Computing Infrastructure. So what we are trying to say that the work in the scientific side, the scientific research which will be done, then the quantum algorithm repository can be created, and that can be used at various levels. The quantum accelerators can be built, the standards can be brought in, the education and training becomes another major factor into this whole program. The quantum interface and the quantum simulator. Now, the quantum simulator and the education and training go hand in hand, because a lot of training can be done on these quantum simulators sitting at various levels. So CDAC is very effectively using these simulators to conduct the training programs, and then the intelligent analytics can be brought onto the system. So what I would like to say, let's break the silo, let's collaborate, and let's succeed together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Darbari. Pleasure to, understand what CDAC is doing. I think Dr. Philip, would you want to go next?
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Can you make me a presenter so I can share my screen?
Yes, just give me a moment.
Okay.
Yes, done. Then you can share your screen. We can see.
Okay, you can see? Great. Try that. So you can see that?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. I want to thank ASSOCHAM and the organizers and the moderator for this opportunity. My name's Philip McCoten. I'm I'm on the business team of Honeywell Quantum Solutions. I'm really happy to be here and tell you about some of the recent work we've done and what Honeywell is doing in quantum computing. So I think, as you probably already heard today, there's a number of different applications of quantum computing. But it's sort of hard to understate how disruptive and how important quantum computing is going to be in the upcoming years. There's no industry, there's no vertical, there's no business that won't be impacted by quantum computing. And so the race is on to build these systems and to find the first killer apps. And so we've listed some of the areas where people generally believe that quantum computing will be used first. But all these areas of operational optimization, machine learning, chemistry and materials, and different industry problems have the characteristic that they're very large problems with many parameters that classical computers have trouble finding solutions towards. So given that this disruption is on the horizon, given that quantum computing is coming, the approach that Honeywell has taken is we realized a few years ago that based on our broad sort of business groups of aerospace, building technologies, performance materials and technology, safety product solutions, and the connected enterprise effort, that we have the core technology, underlying technology to build a really capable quantum computer. We have throughout these business units, we have ultra high vacuum expertise, lasers and optical expertise, cryogenic expertise, controls expertise, microfabrication, RF signaling, and magnetics expertise. And putting these pieces together, which we found throughout our businesses, have enabled us to build really a world-class quantum computer. And so what Honeywell did about 10 years ago was to start an effort, create a team to start working on these quantum computers. And what we've done since then, the past 5 years, we sort of came out of stealth mode and announced that we're building a quantum computer after working on some of the underlying core technologies. And we've grown that team to more than 130, not just scientists, but also engineers to make the systems robust, to build systems accessible for today for people to use and for users to go on and access the systems. And the way we're doing this is by robust technology development using parallel paths. So we have many systems in the lab that are all concentrating on one piece of the technology development and pushing that all together and integrating it into a commercial system that I'll talk about a little bit later today. So if you're thinking to yourself as a user or maybe as even someone who wants to build a quantum computer, how do you make a quality one? How do you make one that's going to be able to scale and attack problems in the near term and find that first business solution? And so I've listed out the criteria that we use to address what is a high quality quantum computer. So you need things like high quality qubits, high fidelity qubits that you can do meaningful calculations with. you need to be able to connect these qubits, and not just connect them necessarily next to each other and nearest neighbor connections, but have any qubit talk to any other qubit. You need to be able to scale the system. Whatever you build, you need to be able to scale it to larger and larger qubits. And you need to be able to have your hardware perform have capabilities that can maximize the effectiveness of whatever quantum algorithmic writers there may be, or quantum users there may be. And so when Honeywell went and looked at these characteristics, we decided, and we sort of saw that trapped ion based quantum computing was had a check mark on each one of these categories, and that's the path we've gone down. So, really at the heart of our system is this qubit. At the heart of any quantum computer is the qubit. And for us, we decided to use ytterbium-171. It's a specific type of this atom, ytterbium, and we ionize it. And the reason why we do that is because each qubit, which we make out of ytterbium, is identical. Every single qubit is identical. Every single qubit is perfect. So we store this we use this qubit, and we use energy levels in the atomic physics of the qubit to store information, and then process that information based on the laws of quantum mechanics. So I won't get into the details of the atomic physics and different energy structures, but I want to leave I want to give you the sense and the takeaway that our challenge isn't creating the qubits. Our challenge isn't creating the quantum computer. Our challenge is controlling the quantum computer and processing the information. And given that Honeywell is a controls company, I think we're very well suited to take on this problem and to take on this task. So you might be asking yourself what these systems look like and what the quantum computers look like. So this is a diagram of this to give you the sense of scale of what our system is. So on the very right hand side of this slide are little dots, which are represented as individual ions, individual atoms, which make up the quantum computer, which make up the information. And then surrounding that is a number of magnetic controls and cryogenic controls and vacuum chamber controls and RF and DC signals and measurement optics and lasers and conditioning for those lasers to process the quantum information and control electronics to control all this various hardware. And so I think you can get the sense that if the quantum computer is that little tiny red portion in the right-hand side, the challenge is to build the hardware and build the control systems around this quantum computer, around that quantum information of the trapped ions. So I'll jump to the punchline that we've built over the past 2 or 3 years, have a really intense focus on building a system. And just recently, just last week, we announced that our quantum computer, there's a very good metric put out there by IBM called quantum volume. It's a measure of how good your quantum computer is. And we just announced last week that we have the highest quantum volume, the world's highest performance quantum computer in our 6-qubit system. So it works on something called the QCCD architecture. It's an architecture which was proposed maybe 25 years ago and was only just realized commercially by us by putting all these various pieces together. There are 6 qubits in our system, and there's which our system is limited by that 6-qubit number, and it's limited by that number, which is important to know because all the other systems out there really struggle with this fidelity. With the fidelity of operations, how good you can process the quantum information. And so over here, I've also highlighted that our fidelities of performing these operations in qubits are world leading and sort of commercial leading in how good they are. And then at the bottom of this, on the right-hand side, I just wanted to put some of the differentiators that our system affords users. So things like all-to-all connectivity, where you can see that instead of doing a tic-tac-toe pattern of moving nearest neighbor to move the information around, our qubits, we can connect any qubit to any other qubit. And so that affords us huge savings in overhead for our systems. We have something else called high resolution rotations, which helps us reduce the number of gates you need to do to perform your quantum program. And then on the right-hand side of the bottom section is something we call mid-circuit measurement and reuse. So that's the ability to pick out any single qubit, any individual qubit that we have, and measure it in the middle of a calculation. That's sort of a breakthrough capability that we've come up with, and algorithmic writers have been able to use that to really save the overhead needed on quantum calculations. So sitting on top of all of that is a fully software stack that's fully executable. We have a cloud API interface which users can come in and access the device, and then we process that information going down our software stack all the way to the hardware based on FPGA control, and then return results to a user once we process the quantum program. And so if you're asking yourself, how do you go and access the quantum computer? We have three various mechanisms for any partners or enterprise users. So firstly, you can come to us directly and access our commercial systems based on the cloud API that I just showed you. Secondly, we have a number of really great software partners that we've been working with in collaboration to do demonstrations in our system. So I think you'll hear from Cambridge Quantum Computing and Zapata and later in the session, but in collaboration with them, you can work on your algorithms and then come and run those algorithms on a Honeywell quantum computer. And then lastly, I think as Microsoft mentioned earlier today, we're part of the Microsoft Azure Quantum offering. So you can use Q# to program your quantum algorithm and then come run that program on our system. So we see.
Thank you, Dr. Philip.
Yeah.
Dr. Philip, 30 seconds, please.
Okay.
Because I need to ask you some questions. Yeah, thank you. 30 seconds.
Of course. I'll just say that we see use of quantum computers as critical to developing these quantum technologies. So it's not just about writing the programs and simulating them. It's about actually running them on real systems. It's about understanding how they perform on real systems and how the algorithms work. So I won't spend any time on this slide, but only just highlight that we're very, very proud of the fidelity and the capability of our quantum computers. It's really these high fidelity numbers which allow us to have the world's highest performing quantum computer. And lastly, I'll just say that there's a number of algorithmic demonstrations we've done in our system. One being the quantum volume, which is the world's leading number. And then lastly, we published a paper talking about this mid-circuit measurement and reuse capability. So using qubits and reusing qubits in the middle of a calculation to make your calculation smaller and less resources required. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Philip. Thank you very much.
Of course.
It's a lot of information, but we'll quickly move on to both Andre and Denise. The reason I'm rushing you all is I need some time to ask you some real-time questions and from the industry. So please bear with me if I'm pushing you. Andre and Denise, you have about 20 minutes. If you could finish in 17, we'll get back some 3 minutes to ask the questions towards the end of the sessions. Okay, thank you.
We'll do it in less than 15. It's a pleasure to be with you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. My name is Andre Koenig. I'm calling you from Miami, Florida, USA, where I've lived here in New York for the last 20 years. I'm originally from Germany. Hopefully I can be with you in India next time. I love what the secretary said about don't leapfrog, frogs are dead, but pole vault. And to give you an idea of what this looks like, my company, Interference Advisor, collects data on the quantum tech ecosystem. This is a chart that shows public government investments by country. Obviously, the US is very big here, as well as Canada. My home, Germany, just announced $2 billion of additional commitments on top of $1 billion previously. Data out of Russia and China is very difficult to get, but we see very large commitments. And we just put India on the map here. So that is really great to see. And India is thinking very, very big here, which Denise and I believe is very important. I have another chart that shows private investments from investors, venture capitalists into quantum technologies. Here, I do not have data from Russia or China, which is very secretive. Also, I don't have data from India, which doesn't mean that there is no private investments. It just means I haven't found the data. So if anybody on this call wants to reach out to me and help me find investment data on India, I would appreciate that. But you can get a little bit of a sense where in this world quantum investments are being made. Obviously, Europe has a very strong concerted effort, and the UK is leading here. Australia is very, very strong with so far 18 different investment deals that I've been able to identify. Canada, one of the early investors and believers in quantum technologies, and of course the US with a very active startup scene and investment scene is really at the forefront here. So we will talk a little bit about how to get started in quantum tech and what we see with startups and investors. We actually put a web page together for you that everybody can access at quantumworlddetangled.com/QT-intro. Let me introduce my friend Denise. Denise spent 17 years at IBM, where she ended up leading the IBM Q network and really was at the forefront of building up what today is the largest quantum computing network partnership system in the world. Today, she is the Chief Business Officer at Cambridge Quantum Computing, the leading quantum software company in the world. And Denise, maybe you can give us a sense of what you see in quantum computing, and start off by telling us a little bit about Cambridge Quantum Computing that works with many of the Fortune 500 companies.
Thank you, Andre, and thank you to the organizers for including us in this great conference. And a call out to Dr. Raghunathan from IBM. Shesha, it was really great to hear you speak. So thank you. Wanted to start off and talk a little bit about Cambridge Quantum Computing. We're one of the older startups in quantum. We've been around for almost 6 years. We are a software company as well as a quantum security provider. We have about 85 employees globally. We have offices in Asia, the US, and of course the UK. And what's interesting about our company is that both Honeywell Quantum and IBM Quantum are investors, and we have access to their premium devices. So we are the only startup in the world that has access to both those devices, and we're very excited about both of them and using them in our engagements, which include many Fortune 500 companies, as well as quite a few research collaborations. So I'm excited to talk to you today about preparing your organization to be quantum ready. As you all know, this is something we need to plan for and really think about. And so if Andre, if you could go to the next slide.
Absolutely, and just to put that in perspective, down below you have a few more data charts that categorize, in this case, all quantum technology firms that we have worldwide. If you look at software, there's currently, to my count, 82 quantum software companies, and I'm sure I'm missing a few, especially in India. But just to give you a sense of this ecosystem, and Cambridge Quantum Computing with Denise's leadership is really at the top here. But let's look at how to get ready for quantum.
I also want to say that the quantum ecosystem has grown very quickly. In the beginning of 2018, there were 10 companies, and so the 10 companies in the whole ecosystem. So now there's over 300 quantum companies. So there's quite a lot of interest and growth in this segment. But what I want to talk about is I've been talking to a number of companies in India through Cambridge Quantum Computing about how to start thinking about quantum computing in your organization and how to prepare your organization to be quantum ready. And what we typically do is we encourage you very much to assemble a diverse team of expertise. So that could be data scientists, it could be programmers, it could be quantum physicists, other innovators in the organization, and business people. And so what we typically find at a company or organization is that they put together a team of people, and then that team takes some time and learns the basics of quantum. There's a lot of material out on quantum, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's a podcast that Andre and I do weekly called Quantum World Detangled. There's news websites like the Quantum Computing Report. And then a lot of the companies like Microsoft and IBM also have a lot of information and education. So it's important that you have a team and you get educated. And then the next thing you need to do is you need to educate the executive team. So typically, it's very typical that you find a team at a company that is very interested in quantum, and their next step to do is to go to their management team and present quantum and let them see the promise of this technology, and through that conversation then get a budget so that you can move forward and start a quantum initiative for your company. So really important steps to do. It's something whenever you engage with a startup partner, we will all encourage you to do this. And it's the collective team that really drives the innovation and drives the ideas behind what problems you're going to choose for quantum. So let's go to the next slide and talk about choosing the right project for quantum.
Absolutely, and I work with many large and small companies in the US and Europe that want to do quantum. One of the challenges is finding the use case, and we've seen some great presentations on that today already. But where do you get started as an automotive company, chemical company, financial services company? And I think what we're really seeing is that people think too small. They think too much in a little corner of a small little application. And our message here, Denise,
is to dream and dream big. And I think this is the most important thing is really when you look at what problems you want to solve in quantum. I think the most fascinating engagements are when people really innovate and they really look at their business and they ask, where do you have intractable problems? Where is the lack of compute slowing you down? Where can you innovate? What is a big problem that would be a game changer for our business? So typically whenever we have these conversations about what is the right quantum project, we talk and then someone in the room says, you know, I've always thought we should do this. And that ends up being the problem that we go after. So I encourage all of you to really dream big, think out of the box, think what innovation would mean to your company and to your industry, and focus on that. The other thing I say is to get advice from not just one, but a team of experts. One of the things that I'll find is that someone will come to me and say, oh, I talked to my friend and he says this. And it's important to gather different opinions when you're refining your idea. So please reach out, get people to talk to, and refine your idea with a group of people and not just a single person.
and that is really why our goal is to make these resources available to you. Again, this website is available for you, quantumworlddetangled.com/QT intro. You get the slide deck, some data. You also can sign up to our newsletter, which shares a lot of great information. And we have a community specifically for quantum tech startups called One Quantum, where a lot of the leading startups are collaborating to solve problems together, and especially business problems around sales, marketing, scaling, operations, human resources, and so forth. So please check that out as well. And with that, I think we're on our closing slide. Denise?
Well, so again, consult to experts, not just one person, but a group of people. We at Cambridge Quantum have a very seasoned scientific team. who does quantum computing every day. So it's very important to look at who you're talking to and who you're getting advice from and what their experience is overall in the market. I'm sorry, it's 4 in the morning for me. Partnering with a startup does reduce your risk. And we also think that you should look for startups who have access to the latest quantum computers, because it's important that you have some agility to use different devices so you can take advantage of new innovation like what Philip just talked about for Honeywell, which is just a tremendous device and brings tremendous capabilities to your research. And then we also recommend that you work with a startup or you work with an organization to help you put together your research program. It's very hard to just start doing quantum computing on your own. So typically people will come to us or come to other startups and ask for guidance to help forming their program, putting all the right pieces in place and getting started. And often after a period of time, then they go off on their own. But it really helps when you get some structure around and some experience from people that do this every day. Andre, is there a next slide?
I think, yep, go big or go home.
Yes. So my advice on doing quantum computing is to go big or go home. Think of the big problems and really strive for innovation and game-changing solutions. And do this by working with experts, carefully defining your approach, your use cases, your roadmap, and your business justification. And we believe that those are the foundations for a successful quantum computing program at your company or in your laboratory.
And again, to pick up on a point the secretary made earlier, there's a lot of opinions, a lot of hype in the industry. Look at the data, and we have this data. You can access some of it here on this webpage for you. But you know, look at the data on companies, on vendors, on use cases, on investors to make your decisions. Quantum is a game changer if done correctly. This is not something that you want to do based on opinions, based on emotions, based on gut feels. We hope this is helpful to you. Please contact us anytime. We'd be happy to help. And that was 2 presentations in 14 minutes.
Thank you very much. And Denise, really appreciate it. Mr. Whitehall, would you want to go next, please? I have 2 questions for you, Andre and Denise, but I'll come back to the questions. Let Mr. Whitehall give us
great
deck, and then I'll come back to you. There are some questions. Okay.
Yes, just need the presenter mode. Could you assign me the presenter mode, please?
Yes.
Oh, okay, got it. No.
Just give me a second.
No, not yet.
Now,
Right,
I think,
sure thing.
can you try?
Right. Yes. Right. Can you see my screen?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, how about now? Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
Please go to presentation mode. That would help. Thank you.
Yeah, doing that. Okay, perfect. So if it's working, then the first hurdle is passes. So hello everyone. My name is Vital Kowalczyk. I'm the Director of European Business Development at Zapata Computing. Thank you all for this invitation. It has been a great event. I learned a lot of information. and I'll be happy to do my modest contribution to what has been already said so far. I'll talk briefly about Zapata, what we do, and of course also present, sort of contribute to the topic of becoming quantum ready, how we view this, how we approach this, and what are some of the ideas that you can use on your journey to quantum readiness. So Zapata Computing, just to give you a few key facts, we are a company that has been launched in 2017 as a spin-off from Harvard University. We have right now about 40 people on board, including some of the best scientists in the field. Now total number of academic citations on papers from quantum computing is over 20,000, which is by far the most for any startup, any software company in that space. We have very international presence with locations in Boston, which is our headquarters, Toronto, which is our sort of second office, in Europe and Japan, where we are opening offices, but we already have customers and are working on projects. In terms of sort of our academic capabilities, we are the leading team in terms of VQE. This is a very well-known algorithm that you probably are familiar with. Our founders are behind the creation of that algorithm, and since then we went on to create a lot of other key breakthroughs in that seminal algorithms in that field. You can find on our website. We've been also doing work on factoring. I know this has been mentioned previously by Dr. Darbari. So we have currently the record for the largest number factor on the quantum computer, which is a project that we did in collaboration with IBM. And Honeywell, as Philip mentioned earlier, Honeywell is one of our partners that we work with in terms of the hardware, of providing hardware. And this is just a highlight from the MIT Technology Review that came out this February in 2020, which lists quantum supremacy as one of the key. Can you still see my screen? Because I have some. Okay. Which is quantum supremacy by the MIT Technology Review, which has been listed as one of the 10 breakthrough technologies for 2020, and listing Zapata as one of the companies sort of active and leading in that space and at quest for quantum supremacy. So why quantum computing matters? I don't think any of you needs any special convincing on that topic, but just maybe one way we look at it, and one way which helps to frame the conversation, is to look at the top 10 HPC applications, what people are trying to do today with supercomputers, and compare this with what is happening in the quantum computing space. What are some of the applications that are being currently explored? What are some of the companies that are being present in the field? And there's almost a perfect match, which sort of contributes to the idea that also was expressed today, that HPC is one of the next steps in terms of supercomputing, and that sort of helps frame the debate. And maybe instead of looking at this very complex technology that will replace everything we do, maybe one way to approach this better is to look at something that will come in and improve the way we do HPC today, and obviously help us some very big problems and some very challenging and promising problems that we haven't been able to tackle properly with classical computing today. And this is just an overview of the current players active in the field. Some of the companies, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, that are being present, some of them that we work with, collaborate for a long time, and advanced projects in chemistry and finance, pharmaceuticals, logistics. So becoming quantum ready, and that means a lot of things, and different companies will have different views of looking at this quantum readiness. And typically what we see, today companies are in a mode where they want to start in quantum computing, either by doing some workshops, doing some proof of concept work, maybe exploring some quantum inspired algorithms, maybe purchasing some platforms and some tools, access to hardware, doing talent training. There are different ways that we see companies being active in the space. And typically the way we see it, there are 3 stages into which organizations explore quantum computing. First of all, starting by this knowledge gaining. That is something that Denise mentioned as well, where companies that typically will talk to different people, talk to different experts in the field, build their own teams, start some talent training, start getting some of the teams, acquainted with the technology. And then later on, this will move to a use case exploration. So identifying the right problems to work on, the right use cases to work on, and starting to work on them, either internally or some experts outside. And then eventually, once you gain knowledge in what quantum computing is and how you can solve problems with it, companies tend to go big and start hiring teams and sort of building full, let's say, internal capabilities, purchasing different tools, purchasing different solutions, whatever it is they need for a quantum computing, for the quantum computing readiness. And typically, there are three key challenges that we see across all organizations, and this is true for private companies, for large Fortune 500 corporations, for government research labs, for different types of entities. Typically, the three challenges are the people, so the talent or the lack of the talent, because what we notice in our work is that it's very easy to get scientists, put them on a quantum computing problem, and have them come up with a quantum computing algorithm in the next few months, going from nothing. But it's actually very, very difficult to build a practical algorithm. So what will often happen is people will design something and say, yes, this will work once you have 50,000 qubits or 60,000 qubits or a fault-tolerant machine. And the hardware progress is nowhere near that. So what is really key and what is really important is to be able to fully understand the problems, fully understand what you're working on, and being able to design an algorithm which will work maybe on 200 qubits, maybe on 500 qubits, maybe on 100 qubits. And those kind of people, those kind of experts are very hard to come by. The second challenge is typically resources or the lack of resources, either not having a budget schedule for it. Sometimes companies will have a very robust R&D budget and roadmap for the next few years, but that will not include money set out for quantum computing. And the third challenge that we see is the strategy, and that often companies don't have a clear idea of what they want to do in quantum computing, or don't know how to measure the KPIs, which also comes from maybe lack of understanding of technology. And oftentimes they will expect fast ROIs in the next 6 months or in the next 3 months, and they will expect that quantum computing will give them an edge already today, and often assume that it's more of a long-term play, and that they need to have the right strategy and the right mindset to approach quantum computing. And so we sort of the way we look at is we've put together as a part of we call a quantum readiness matrix, where for each of the 3 stages, which are knowledge gaining, use case exploration, and platform integration, we provide some potential solutions or some potential tips on what you should do to mitigate the people problem, the resources problem, and then the strategy problem. And typically on the knowledge gaining stage, where your company or your organization is trying to find information resources, it's very hard to make your way through all the hype that is present, through all the information you read. And the best advice that can be given is just talk to everyone. The companies that talk to us and engage Zapata don't just come to Zapata because of a nice website. They typically come to Zapata as part of a long string of talking to all the companies, all the hardware providers, all the software providers in the space. And typically, by having a good overview of what is happening in the space, they make a decision of who they want to work with or what they should do it alone. The second thing is, set aside a budget to help you, have the resources that you need to pursue the technology, and be aware this is something you should have on your roadmap. And then define the goals of the KPIs clearly, so that you know what you expect and your management knows what to expect. So you don't sort of overstock quantum computing within your organization, but rather everybody's on the same page and everybody knows that this will be a long-term play, but it's a play that will be worth it, because if you invest some money today, but in the future will make your organization more sustainable, or allow it to save billions or to make millions, then it's definitely worth it. On the use case exploration side, choose the best experts to work with. That's the point I was making earlier. It's very easy to find people who will write a quick algorithm, but it's very hard to find the people who will write an effective algorithm. And I think that's part of the challenges that need to be overcome. And then defining the right use cases, that is sort of in the same flavor. What we see is oftentimes companies interested in showing us, 6 or 7 different problems. Typically 5 of them will be, 3 of them will be just classical problems that you can solve on a classical HPC. 2 of them will be problems that are suited for quantum computing, but would require thousands and thousands of qubits. And then usually 1 problem is sort of in the nice ballpark where we want it to be, which is we are able to find a solution that will work on a few hundred qubits and that is worth pursuing already today. And then eventually secure the know-how transfer. I think the last thing you want to do with your organization is to find yourself in a situation where you spend some time on quantum computing and haven't actually built the capabilities internally. That is something which you should have your own team in your company, being acquainted with quantum computing, be able to do quantum computing, be able to connect it with the use cases you're exploring, and therefore having the know-how transfer is the key strategic add-on to whatever you're going to do in quantum computing. And then on platform integration side, what is really relevant is is to build the best team in your company, and typically that's a mix of experts from just general analytics or AI or HPC with experts who work on a specific use case, and you want that team to be assigned to quantum computing and be able to understand all the different mechanisms, all the different aspects that are coming into play. If you need to hire someone from the outside, then you can also do that. But choosing the right people will be definitely a key element. Then choosing the right platform for your organization. That is another aspect, which is
what about 30 seconds, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is about choosing the right platform that will suit you, and one that you can also personalize and adjust to your problems and to the solutions that you want to work on, and that allows you to combine some specific libraries that you might have inside, and allows you this flexibility to include all the things you want to do in the quantum computing space. And that was it from my side. It's a brief overview. If there are some questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, you can also reach out to me after that, and I'll be happy to discuss some more and learn about some of the projects you're working on.
Yeah, let Mr. Sunil just do his deck. I have 2 questions for you. Quite old, I'll come back to you.
Perfect.
The couple of questions that are coming, so we'll come back to you. Mr. Sunil, please go ahead. You need to unmute yourself as well. No, we can't hear you.
Yeah, okay, I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I need to present, how do I go about presenting? Okay.
Making you the presenter, Mr. Gupta.
Okay.
Now see.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, now we can.
Yeah, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I'm going to be talking much simpler things because I'm doing a simpler things. I'm going to talk about quantum security. So I'm going to talk about CUNY Labs. We have actually started a company 4 years ago. We were incubated in the IIT Madras Research Park, and we have a today commercially deployable product. So I'm going to talk about what we did and how we did. So if you see, World Economic Forum had been talking about several global risks, right? One of them had been infectious diseases, but they've been talking about this for 5 years now, but nobody took it seriously, right? So people had it may not happen, but now we know what happened, right? And the whole world is in lockdown. They also talked about cyber attacks and the data theft. And when we see, this is a little dark comparison, but when we see, compare all the health pandemic with the data pandemic, what I call it, then you'll see that a lot of opportunities were given to humankind in terms of smaller attacks, health pandemic, but we did not learn much. And then eventually we got a bigger one. Same thing has happened with cybersecurity when we have seen some of the smaller ones, some of the bigger attacks. But again, the world did not taking it seriously, and the bigger risk is Y2Q, a year to quantum, around when a scalable enough quantum computer from Honeywell, IBM, or Microsoft to be there, and then we will see a world. And in that situation, there will not be any way to go forward or back, and you cannot have lockdown as well, because nobody will allow this to take the data off the internet or cloud. So global risks are maturing fast, and world is not ready to tackle this. So we also know that, I'm taking an analogy of trains, right? When somebody bandits wants to loot something, they wait for the train to be in the motion and then they go and attack that, because it's most vulnerable when it is in motion. Similarly, our data is most vulnerable when it's in motion, and that is where it is not protected today. We also know that 75% of the data on the internet is either on a terrestrial network, which is terrestrial fiber, or an undersea fiber. And the world has been tapping into the fiber cables for decades, right? It's not known since Cold War. There has been attempts to tap into the fiber cables, and everybody has been behind the encryption key. So the important is, while everybody today talked about the bright side of a quantum computer, unfortunately there is a dark side of a quantum computer, which is about that they will have exponential power to break today's encryption, which is a function of mathematical complexity, because today's encryption, public key cryptography is a one-way function, right? So you can't factorize, find factors of the key, but quantum computer will be able to do that in minutes. So, and that's what happened. Somebody broke Enigma and got in the World War, and the World War changed from that day, right? So the question is, and today, even today, people are trying the same thing. GCHQ has been copying under the secret project named Tempora. They've been copying and storing 20 petabytes of data every day, and they've been giving to NSA, because NSA was looking into this data to stop terrorism and everything else. But that's what the risk is, right? All the data is easily stored. And the other problem is that we have been talking about quantum computers, but we know that now quantum computers are getting access on the cloud, right? And what it means is that if the easy access to a quantum computer on the cloud to break into any data is actually making this risk far, far serious. So today, if you see most of the data, whether it's financial data, personal data, the lifetime is all more than 10 years. So what it means is that if somebody copies our data today and stores it, and then it breaks it tomorrow when the sufficiently strong quantum computers come in, then the world will be in a big problem. And that is where we are seeing the harvest now in decrypt later attack, right? So none of the enterprise today have any answer to this. So we said, what we have to do, we have to protect the encryption key, because if you are able to protect the encryption key, then we will be able to protect the enterprises and the world from the dark side of the quantum computer. So said we're going to use the same principles of quantum physics, and what we're going to use that to detect any eavesdropping on the quantum channel. And if you can use quantum physics to transfer to generate the key on a quantum channel, and any act of eavesdropping will actually bring the quantum principles in, and we will be able to detect as well as prevent any act of eavesdropping. So that's what the fundamental science behind and logic behind the quantum key distribution product. So this is what it does. It's a quantum channel between two parties. We set up a quantum channel. Any eavesdropper comes in, and the quantum state gets disturbed, but the errors goes up on both sides, and we just kill the key. So the hackers might get the data, but they will never get the key. So what it means is that they either have to use a brute force, right, which is impossible to do with the AES 128 or 256. So they have no other option, right? And that's a foolproof way to protect encrypted data today. So we got a quantum physics in our product called, I'm going to play a short video, right, just to help for the audience. Maybe a lot of speakers here are already probably well educated about the science.
Dr. Sunil, I think we get the gist of it because there's no audio along with the video.
Oh, no? Because I could
no problem. Get the gist. No
okay,
problem.
I will
You get the gist of it. Okay.
Okay, I'll just skip that. Okay.
Okay. Anything else, doctors? Mr. Sunil,
No,
because
yeah,
okay,
I'll just take
very interesting.
I'll just take
please.
2 more minutes. So I don't know what my presentation is gone. Can you see that presentation now?
Now we are still seeing the YouTube screen.
Oh, is it?
Yep. The almost demo.
Okay.
4 minutes, 8 seconds. Yeah.
No, I will be
Get back to your presentation, please.
Yes. So today, today we have we deploying that in the BFSI sector, data centers. So,
Can you again try, Mr. Gupta, for your presentation?
I tried that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we can see now.
Okay. So it's not come up for me yet.
It's BFSI and telecom.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. It's not. I don't know. It's showing me all of you.
No, we can see the presentation.
Getting BFSI and telecom.
Yeah. So okay. So this BFSI data center, telecom, and defense. So this is where we have very active deployments going on. I just gave you a couple of use cases in the data centers, which is probably 100 kilometers away from a server room. We can actually secure a primary data center, secondary or a tertiary data center by putting a quantum key distribution. And the beauty of this model is that it is just an overlay model. So if you see all the infrastructure here, let's say the Cisco or Juniper encryptors and the existing infrastructure, that remains same. We do not replace any box. There's no need to move any cable or change any topology. We can just bring the PQD boxes into the data center, connect them on the LAN with the existing encryptors, and we get them quantum ready, right? Similarly, if you are trying to do a bank where one bank connecting to its different branches and data storage, and you have an MPLS network, you can very seamlessly connect quantum key distribution and create a quantum network. Security is very interesting. There's always a challenge about getting a secure security in the cloud. People are worried about either the information is unencrypted or the encryption keys are with the cloud service provider. So what we do is by creating a QKD between two people, they're having the quantum keys with them, we can actually, the enterprise can actually create a quantum secure Dropbox in the cloud. So only these two users have the keys with them, and they can encrypt and decrypt whenever they want it, and nobody else get an access to this data in the cloud, right? So our vision is that while we have been working on a fiber-based QKD, and that we believe the connected world in the future is going to be where this all quantum will be there. It will be fiber-based quantum, then it will be post-quantum cryptography, which is a hybrid model where we can extend it to the last mile, right, to the mobile and mobile devices, and then to connect to a metro area, to a wide area network across cities. We will be having a satellite-based QKD that we are also working on right now. So that's what I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, it is a lot of information. I mean, I a little bit of IQ, but you guys have actually inundated us with so much of information. So I will get you into real life problems again, okay? And I'll start off with Dr. Darbari. Dr. Darbari, I know the mission is creating some strides with what you've been doing. Question to you is, in the game plan, how would you link the industry? Because you're a research institution, so how will you ensure that the industry gets to real life applications? Because if you've heard Whitehall, if you've heard Philip, Andre, and Denny speak, it's a matter of connecting real life applications to the research which is happening. How is CDAC trying to do that, Dr. Darbari? You'll need to unmute yourself, Dr. Darbari. We can't hear you.
Mr. Darbari, you are still, now we can hear you.
Okay. So I think from CDAC perspective, if you see, we have already come up with a collaborative innovation side, and in which we have floated a intent of association where the industry can participate with us. So what we have IOA for collaborative innovation, and industry and CDAC, both of us can work together, and on a specific problem we can sign up an NDA, and we can even go in for a rev share on top of it. So that's the model which I have already got approved from the ministry. So that's the model which we like to work on. So it's definitely possible if we have a joint interest, we can define a problem and then we can work together. Where we can engage even startups or even industries to come up with a concrete plan and with the ROI defined, and we can take it to the next level. And in this case, we definitely will like to do that because a lot of work is already done at the industry level, and we can definitely collaborate.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Darbari. Interesting. My next question is to Philip and Andre and Denise. This is an important question. What you've managed to show from both your stealth mode Honeywell coming in with a I would call it a chipset right now. I mean, it's a quantum computer in some shape or form. And Denise and Andre talking about investments being made by governments as well as by private institutions in this field. Is there a race right now in this area to get to the next level, or is there potential for collaboration across national borders? Because are we going to solve problems of new drugs, agriculture, problems that the world will face in the next 15-20 years? I would be dead by then, but maybe my children and grandchildren will face problems. Are you seeing collaboration between nations and institutions right now, or is it only commercial interests which are driving this collaboration? I mean, could you clarify? Because you see both Honeywell and both the other organization seems to have a lot of insight. What is happening? Andre or Denise, will you start first, and then maybe Dr. Philip can chip in?
I think it's a very important question. Let me say a few things. I mentioned in my introduction that I'm originally from Germany. Germany last week announced 2 billion euros in funding for quantum computing. That comes after the European Union, under the leadership of France and Germany, announced over another billion in funding. The main reason the European countries did that is because they want to be independent from American vendors like Honeywell, IBM, and they want to be independent from cloud offerings. They want actual on-premise solutions as well as a European cloud solution, which is currently being built. So absolutely, there is a race at the national level. You also saw me show some of these world maps, and I have blank spots in Russia and China. It is very difficult to get data out of Russia and China, the companies, the investment, what the government does, because it is a national security priority and also a defense strategy. So there is a very, very big race. It's very significant. I think our community at large is still small and very close and highly collaborative. So at the personal level, the people that you have invited here, you absolutely can and must collaborate. So both are true and both are very important.
Something there?
I think I want to just add one point, and that is that right now we're seeing a lot of contribution to quantum computing hardware by the big companies. But there is a whole startup ecosystem around development of quantum computers, both in the startups as well as at academic institutions. So I think that the landscape of innovation is going to change as we move forward Right now we're seeing, right, IBM and Honeywell, Rigetti, but I think we're going to see more innovation as we move forward, whether it's an entire device, whether it's chips, you know, whether it's control mechanisms. So I think that we're just at the beginning of this race, and we're going to see countries, consortiums, startups, and all sorts of organizations developing technology.
So I want to add to that. I think those are yeah, I want to add to that. I think those are both great points, and I want to say to your questions, yes, absolutely, it's a race. It's a race to find business value and to create to solve real world problems with a quantum computer. And then to your other question, absolutely yes, it's also a global effort. There's a global ecosystem of companies. Of you know, Denise's company is based in the UK. There's a huge effort in Europe. There's a huge effort in the US. There's a huge effort in Asia for building these systems and building these solutions. And Honeywell is a global company, and we want to bring these solutions to the global market. So yes and yes, it's both a race and both a global effort.
Okay, got it. Let me come back quickly closer to home with Dr. Nagendra and Mr. Sunil. So at one end of the spectrum is obviously a lot of investments going in. It's a very expensive technology at the moment, and obviously you two have built these startups from scratch. You've been at it for maybe 4 or 5 years, and you're at two different ends of the spectrum. One is trying to set up a PaaS infrastructure so that people can come and use it. It makes it more affordable. Mr. Sunil is also trying to catch the qubits in the space so that this doesn't become a problem later on. And my question to both of you is, with the pace of work that you've seen in the past 4 years and the next couple of years, when do you think, as two different startup companies, will this be easily available? Because I think Dr. Nagendra said that his company actually goes live completely in 2023. But will practical applications be, and see that, for example, doing this industry section, etc. Other companies are also doing something. For two startups like yours, when does it become commercially available? And it makes it why. So one part is, when does it become available? Second is, it is cost effective so people can use it, companies can use it. And third is, when does it become viable for you all, both of you? Dr. Sunil, you want to go first, or Dr. Nagendra?
Yeah, thank you. First? Thank you, Aditya. So it's very, very good question. So we deal in quantum cryptography, which we believe is the low-hanging fruit. So that's the reason this is already commercialized. We have products deployed in India and Middle East. We are very actively working in very advanced stages to protect our national secrets in defense and other areas. So this technology is already on. In the last 3 years itself, we have seen it. Ecosystem has developed significantly big. 3 years ago, when we actually started, we actually were struggling with the component. We had to struggle building with the team. We didn't have the partnership. But today, in our ecosystem itself, we have about 15 companies. Right? We have created a vendor ecosystem. We created a manufacturing ecosystem. We have about 2 manufacturing partners now to build our equipment. And most of our deals now are not coming leads to us from our website or people knowing about us and reaching out. It was unexpected, just 2 years ago, right? So we are now seeing that at least quantum cryptography and quantum security is actually coming out of labs and research, and is becoming a commercial deployment. And it's pretty affordable, right? If you look at the cost of not doing it versus the cost of doing it, is nothing. It's not comparable. It's very, very minimal. So now from here, already use cases are starting coming.
You actually answered it in the quantum state. It's not 0 or 1. It's multiple states. You're answering it quite well.
Okay.
So the cost of not doing it will be more. Will be much more than cost of doing it. Understand that fully. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, over to you, Nagendra.
Yeah. Doctor.
Sure. Thanks.
So what would you?
Our approach.
Sorry, you're asking question to me?
Doctor, yeah, I shifted over to Dr. Nagin to look at this affordability, availability, and applicability for the common companies.
Yeah.
When does that happen, and when does it become viable for you? Because these are investments. These are like our investments made.
Absolutely.
When does it
Absolutely.
become viable for startups?
Okay, so what we have approached, our approach is like we are going to actually transition our AI customers to use quantum computer, and we collaborate with big institute like CDAC and other institutes in India. So the viability directly comes from an operation perspective for a quantum computer. Today, if you look at the fridge, what we have to use, dilution fridge, it's a very costly thing. And if we can operate quantum computer at 4 Kelvin, then you can have a cooling system which is as small as coffee machine. So that's the reason we are adapting technology which is based on CMOS, and we want to make it as affordable as possible. Even like 20 qubit machine, if you have very affordable and it can be deployed by all over mid-scale enterprise in India, across Japan and Southeast Asia, I think that would make it very affordable. It's a cooling system that matters actually. The rest of the technology, I think we have to characterize, and semiconductors are known for adapting in characterization and removing the defect and achieving the scale. So if we achieve the scale by 2023, which we are actually aiming at, and if we can transition all the enterprises, big enterprises across the world to actually enable them to use the software stack, which is very easy to use. We have a platform PaaS approach, platform as a service, which is very easy to use compared to other platforms, and that's one of the things that will make quantum adaptable, ease of use, and low cost. These are the two things what QPI is doing right now, and that should help make this affordable across the masses.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. No, very insightful. But I told I'll come back to you with one question. So if you heard all the speakers, one common theme, and depending on whichever technology is used, I know Honeywell had something known as the whiter BM ions being used, whatever the technology. One thing that I heard, I think Denise say was, and Andre and others, that identifying the problem which will need to use quantum computing, and each of you have shown different slides of complex problems which can use quantum computing. Let me ask you a simple question. As a CEO of a company, let's say I do run $1 billion company, and there are many people, there are about 150, 60 people on the call, and some of them running small and large companies. To them, how do they decide, and the words that I think Denise or somebody used were dream big on problems. How do you decide what is the problem that you want to throw at the quantum computer? I'll give you an example. Today, when you're doing these telecoms, our conference calls, their screens are being frozen, things are happening. One of the challenges that, for example, telco space is that they cannot predict faults. They're reactive when they have faults, and they have to go back and correct them, and that takes a time. The analytics horsepower doesn't exist to be able to solve predictive problems in telecoms, for example. Now, what kind of problems do you think will we be seeing solving in the next 12 to 24 months? I'm not looking at 5 years. In the next 12, 24 months, what kind of problems, and how do the people in the audience come back and say, do we need to go back and connect with these 6, 7 people and say, okay, I have a problem, can you solve? How do we do that, Whitehall?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We typically enter into a discussion, and we get a list of questions or problems that people have, and we'll go through that list and talk about which problems are better solved by quantum computing, or which problems are more likely to be solved in near term or far term. So this is part of the discussion that takes place at the beginning of any quantum engagement. And so it's important to come with all your ideas, and then what we do is we work with our scientists, and we refine list to look at which problems are actually have the most likelihood of being solved depending on the period of time you have and depending on the other factors that you look at. So I would say that's one part of your question. I think when you ask about what problems we think are going to be solved in the short term, that's a really good question. And I probably would defer to Philip on what he thinks. My opinion is that I think that there will be some chemistry problems that will be solved in the next probably 18 months, typically a smaller molecule. But I think for me, early on, I believe that there will be innovation in materials and chemistry. And I'd like to ask Philip what his opinion is. Philip,
sure.
are you
Yeah,
there?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the really big question. That's the million-dollar question that everyone's asking. And the way to answer that question is to jump on a quantum computer now, to get on a system like the Honeywell system, and to map your problem to that computer and understand, with CQC or Cambridge Quantum Computing or Zapata's help to map that problem to a quantum algorithm and see how it performs. I think that's the way that you go about and solve those problems now. So with the systems that people are building now, with the great system that Google built that was demonstrated quantum supremacy, or with the system that we have, the highest performing quantum computer in the world, we have that challenge now to find the problem and to map it onto the quantum computer. So I think in the next 12, 18 months, we'll see that first application, that first killer app, as you will. But the
no, very interesting. White already. Yeah. Thank
yes,
you, Dr.
thank
Philip.
you.
White already views on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think my general comment would be that the identifying the use cases in quantum computing is not a trivial thing. If you look at technologies like autonomous driving or robotics, maybe the timeline is just the same, but they get so much more coverage in the media because the technology is very easy to understand. People have seen it in the movies for the past 50 years and they know what an autonomous vehicle is. With quantum, the use case, just like with HPC, by the way, are not trivial. It's oftentimes modeling aerodynamic flows of air around an airplane, right? Most people don't really know those use cases. And even when we talk to CEOs and to the C-level, oftentimes they don't have a full grasp of what use cases the scientists are working on. So oftentimes the communication is at the lower level with the people doing the daily work and trying to solve it on an HPC. And it's all sort of, I guess, about connecting, the high level and the strategic goals of the company with what the engineers see as the key challenges today, and then putting a timeline on it and saying, okay, this is a use case that will be applicable to you, but maybe 10 years from now. And this is another one which you should be working on today. But I don't think there's a simple answer to it. And I think what is cool about quantum computing is that we've seen so much progress on the use cases, just the use case in the past 2 years. If you went to a conference 2 years ago, people would say optimization, chemistry, machine learning on a very high level. If you go today to a conference, people will say, that is the use case we worked on at our energy company, or that is the use case we work on our oil and gas company. This one didn't work, but this one worked, and we're gonna keep digging further and trying to explore it. And I think that's sort of what it's all about, and it's an iterative process, and that's how I sort of encourage companies to look at it in general.
No, it has been, thank you very much. It's been very interesting. It has been very interesting because the panel.
Dr. Darwari wanted to add something on it.
Yeah, Dr. Darwari, obviously, please.
Just one quick this thing, that as you are looking for the applications and applications solutions, I think that in near future, majorly the things will come up from the quantum accelerator side, and we can quickly build on quantum accelerators. That will be the much faster way to realize the things. So I feel that a concentrated effort is required to be put on that particular component, because as the GPUs are used right now, and a hybrid system around HPC has been built with CPU, GPU, I think the next thing will be quantum and HPC together. So CPU, GPU plus maybe quantum accelerators. So I think I want to say that will also solve a lot of problems. plus the speed ups which we'll get will be in the real time. So this is a point I wanted to make.
No, Dr. Dubari, very interesting. I mean, thank you very much. I mean, this is a distinguished gathering of panelists, and when I was called in to moderate, trust me, I was humbled. I have never seen so many PhDs together on one session, and getting people who are actually in terms of knowledge far ahead of you and help them to synthesize the knowledge for people like us on the ground who want to use the technology is something that each of your sessions has actually been wonderful, and we are actually very grateful. On behalf of ASSOCHAM and the rest of the team, really appreciate and thank you for being here. Varun, over to you, please. Thank you very much, panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you for wonderfully moderating the session. I thank all the panelists, including the international ones. I know there is a time difference and it's early morning for you, but thank you for joining us. And we shall be continuing with these sessions in future, and looking forward for everyone to join them. I thank my sponsors, IBM, Microsoft, CDAC, QPI, because without which it was not happening. So, and thank you delegates for joining us. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks for.
Thank you very much for hosting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.